Good evening. It's 6 o'clock Eastern Time, 3 o'clock Los Angeles, 5 in Chicago. I don't know. Thank you for joining. It's 2-way tonight. Last episode of the week. It's been quite a week here. And I couldn't be more grateful to you for joining us for one last round. If you're here on the East Coast, open a Schlitz because it's drinking time for some, not for Charlie. Charlie didn't drink. Uh, this episode will focus primarily on the murder of Charlie Kirk, in part because there are some big developments, and in part because there's not much else news going on in the world. And if you've been following the news all day on the arrest of the suspect, etc., you may not find too much news. President Trump said this morning, next city that will see federal force on the ground is Memphis, but that happened before the morning meeting. He also said he called Mr. Mondami his little communist, also happened before the morning meeting. Karine Jean-Pierre testified before the House committee investigating President Biden's apparent cognitive decline. And she said nothing surprising based on reports that came out of that. Everything else we're going to talk about relates to the murder of Charlie Kirk. And we've got three great guests with us. Katy Balls, Washington reporter for the Times of London. Robby Soave, my two-way colleague, co-host of the group chat, and Maureen O'Connell, former FBI agent, who's joined us previously and eager to hear her view of the investigation. We'll want your questions and comments. Already lots of hands up, which is nice to see. Eager to get lots of you in today. And in fact, I'm thinking of scrapping a lot of everything else and just letting be open conversation. So we'll do that in just a moment. Again, if you want to end the conversation, please raise your hand. I did some spot checking of the chat from this morning's program, both here on the two-way platform and on YouTube, and you'll not be surprised to hear that there's a fair amount of smack in there. Please, peace, love, and understanding. Love, peace, and understanding. Understanding, peace, and love, whatever order you prefer, and extend the presumption of grace to all. I don't consider spirited conversation to involve interrupting, which is to say, if I'm talking and somebody jumps in and says, "Mark, let me tell you why you're wrong there," it doesn't bother me. I don't know. I'm different than some people. I just don't mind being interrupted, as long as the interruption's on point. So if I'm talking about why the Yankees will lose at Fenway tonight, and Alan interrupts to say he'd like a hot dog, not on point. Not on point. But if Alan interrupts to say, "Well, let me tell you, the Yankees starting pitcher tonight's very good. I think they'll probably win," I have no problem with that. I know I'm in a minority on that, but I like back and forth, and I consider all of life to be some combination of Sorkin and Mamet, and there's lots of snappy. Anyway, just want to get that off my chest because, as always, I spent most of my time between the shows answering emails from people telling me how to do my job better. In a moment, our guests will be here, and we'll hear briefly from them, and then we'll get to your questions. So please, we'll get lots of you in tonight. In fact, sometimes, as you know, I make up arbitrary goals on the spot. Let's break the record tonight for most number of community member participants in a single hour-long episode. Let's try for that. So be ready to be quick. Don't want to censor you, but say what you wish to say, and then we'll get to you. In just a moment, again, our guests will be here. Got a new sponsor coming next week. Not going to tell you who it is, but we have a new sponsor coming next week, which you will love. That's all I can say. If I said more, I'd be in violation of federal aviation law. Oh, shouldn't have said that. All right. Here we go. Cozy Earth. You've heard me talk about them before. They are our sponsor here, and we're delighted. We're delighted that they support the program, but we're also delighted because it's introduced me, Sean, Dan, many members of the two-way community to their clothes made from viscose from bamboo, naturally wicking away heat and moisture, and so damn comfortable and so attractive. You put them on, and almost invariably, the next person who speaks to you will say, "Scott, I like the cut of your jib." And it's a little awkward sometimes if it's a stranger saying it to you, but ideally it's your spouse or maybe a close friend. I recommend all their stuff. Very good. 100-night sleep trial for the sheets. 10-year money back guarantee, 10-year warranty for all the bedding products. But the pants are my thing. They're so comfortable. They're so good. I'm not wearing them currently, but I will be wearing them this evening. I may go to the Rainbow Room or the Havana Club. Doesn't matter. I go anywhere. Greasy Spoon. They're good. Go to cozyearth.com right now. Use the code two-way, 40% off everything. Best-selling sheets, pajamas, and more. 40% off. Go to cozyearth.com. We thank them for sponsoring us. Let's bring in our guests. First, Robby. Is Robby not here? Robby's not here. Let's see.
I hear you.
Not here yet. All right. Well, Robby will be here soon. Let's bring in our other
Maureen is
guests. How
on.
about that? Say again?
Maureen is in. Katy is
Maureen
not
is
yet.
in. Katy's not. So we start with Maureen, which is good because Maureen has a specialty. Maureen, welcome in, unmute if you would. Maureen lives in the Los Angeles area, and
Yep.
she's a former FBI agent, and she's got the best backdrop of any member of the community. Maureen, what was distinctive or not about the investigations unfolding today? What was by the book, and what struck you as unusual, if anything?
Well, I thought, as a general rule, it unfolded quickly. It was fantastic. There's no greater feeling in the world than being part of a great big investigation and just watching the wheels turn at a rate you can't believe. Watching people from experts in all different disciplines coming together and working on just mission focused. It's one of the highlights of my entire career. And that's what they did here. You could see on their faces how exhausted people were, but they were not going to sleep until they got the job done. So that was great. I thought it was rather remarkable, in my opinion, that the father turned the child in. It was an honorable thing to do, but had to be an unbelievably difficult situation. I was disappointed yesterday with the press conference. I thought, why even have a press conference? It was just a big bowl of nothing. But they were very close, and they were probably working on it. And they may have had the guy in custody and were debriefing him, and weren't able to get out or whatever. But from where I sit now, that's about it. I wasn't surprised that he was a lone wolf. I wasn't surprised that he was from the area.
Yeah. Let's talk about something that may be a little difficult or painful for some to think through. And again, Maureen, grateful to you for joining, and again to the community. Raise your hand if you want in on the conversation. Charlie had security that traveled with him. There were, as I've heard reported, 6 local police there. As you think now about the logistics of that event, was there a better way to protect him, or he was a sitting duck? Because I don't get how someone with a pretty decent level of security could be killed. See what I'm saying? Like, what's the lesson for someone who wants to be secure? Can you not be secured in an outdoor venue, for instance?
You can be secure in an outdoor venue, but I do threat assessments for a number of entities, and security is done in concentric circles. His was all the close-in circle. He was a man of the people, and he liked to be close, and he didn't want. There are a lot of my clients, by the way, they want top-notch security, but they don't want. They do not want to feel like their lives are altered or changed in any way, shape, or form. Can't really have both. The situation with the rooftop not being covered, that is going to change right now. I'll tell you, that's going to change nationwide. But a lot of these people, Charlie wasn't an elected official. He wasn't. He was just a guy. He looked at himself as a person that went around and tried to open the lines of communication, similar to what you do on two-way, Mark, where he wants it to be, civil discourse. So, even though he received a bunch of threats for some reason that wasn't on their radar, but yes, he should have had drones. They should have had drones up on those rooftops.
Right.
I'm quite sure his security people recommended a number of different things, but the client is always the one that pretty much drives that bus.
Again, we don't know, and Charlie's not here to tell us. But I want to play it out a little bit more. And Robby Soave joins us as well. I want to just play it out a little bit more. If that were my husband or spouse, and that happened, I would say, well, why are we hiring private security? Why is the university sending getting 6 local cops to come? If this one young man, he was not a professional assassin. He acted alone, as best we know. If one young man can relatively easily, with one shot, kill a protectee, and it's not out of the blue. Like, if I went to a university now, they wouldn't hire 6 cops for me, right? So what's you say drones? I mean, it just seems it shouldn't have been an outdoor event, or they needed a lot more of a plan to protect him. I'm not trying to point fingers. I don't know. I just find it a little baffling that a young man with not a lot of expertise could so easily kill someone who was, in theory, the beneficiary of a security plan. And maybe you think that's repetitive of the first thing I asked you, but if you don't have anything else to say, I won't press you.
No,
But it's
it's
just I'm just
absolutely
kind of
frightening.
I'm just kind of incredulous about it because again, like when I forget how much security Gabby Giffords had, but she was like standing outside a supermarket. This was a big event,
Right.
right?
A lot of people feel the exact same way that you do. The important thing to understand is that the most basic premise for security is for someone to watch the high ground because the high ground is where the shot is going to come from.
Yeah.
And that just wasn't done here for whatever reason. Like you said, Charlie's not here. We're not going to find that out, but it just is
Well, again,
tragic.
I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble.
Nor am
I'm
I.
just I'm just I'm just trying to understand. I'm sure there was a conference call and maybe even a document about the security, right? For this event and for the whole trip. There must have been a protocol to say when Charlie goes to a campus, there needs to be a protocol.
Especially as the threats ramped up. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, Robby, welcome and thank you for joining. Would love to hear your, I saw you yesterday and you did a fantastic job on the group chat. If people haven't watched it, everything they talked about is still very germane. So I recommend it to you. It's on our YouTube channel. I'm just wondering, as the weekends, Robby, your just overall sense of where we are as a country, what you wonder about, what you worry about.
Hi, Mark. Great to be with you. Yeah, there's so much we could get into. Obviously, we're learning new information about the potential ideology or motivations of the shooter. That's mostly what I've been following today. I would just say quickly on the security front, because I've thought about this a lot too. We live in a high trust society, and increased security is inherently reactive. It might be the right thing for someone in Charlie Kirk's situation moving forward. Certainly there to be more securing of roofs now that we've had two an actual assassination and a would-be assassin in Trump's case that were on roofs that were not properly vetted. That's something we're going to do in the future. But the history of trying to protect, for instance, the presidents, the Secret Service, right? Somebody just walked up to Garfield and shot him. Somebody just walked up to McKinley and shot him, and then the Secret Service got more competent and more all involved as a result. I mean, I live in Washington, D.C. I see famous political people all the time. I saw Senator Lisa Murkowski on the street the other day. I used to live in the same building as Amy Klobuchar. I saw her at the restaurant on the first floor all the time. Part of it is just that we don't expect things like this to happen, and how much, because it's more. It estranges important people and political figures from the people if they have to be, hermetically sealed behind a bubble or something. So I not only do I not want to start pointing fingers and saying, oh, security didn't do everything right. I want to a little bit defend the idea that it is, good to not have our important people so gated away from us at all times. And I don't want to lose that spirit, even if it is maybe totally appropriate to relook at how people of that stature speak at campuses.
Yeah, very
And
well
I hear
said.
that a lot from my clients. Yes.
That they say what, Maureen?
Just what he said. They don't want to feel like they're hermetically sealed and that they're separate from other members of society. And the whole point is to get the job done and do it quietly and proficiently and out of sight, so to speak.
Yeah. A couple things. I hope neither of these sound too self-involved, but when I interviewed Charlie on Tuesday and he talked about going back out on tour, a lot of that for him was to be interactive with people, to learn from the questions, to be around the country. Amongst his many gifts was he's a great reporter, right? One reason I love this platform, one reason I travel all the time for my job, because I live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan and I'm not going to learn much here except how much locks cost at Zabar's, is you learn stuff by talking to people. And so finding a way to have normal human action. I have once in my career needed security. And it wasn't six cops, but I had security, and it was necessary, but it really did interfere with my job. Being a reporter, it's kind of hard to talk to sources with a security guard standing with you. Again, though, I know I'm being repetitive, but it's been on my mind all day when we learned the identity, and this wasn't some mastermind who did it. Having six cops in private security and being killed it's just very vexing to me. All right, Katie's going to join us in a little bit, and I've got saying this to my colleagues. I know I've got one more sponsor to acknowledge, but I'm just going to shake up the format a little bit, because if we're going to break the Guinness Book of World Records, most two-way participant community participant questions in one 60-minute period, we got to get started. So we're going to do that, and I'll talk about our sponsor in a little bit. Jacob is here. Normally, I have no warning about guests. But Jacob was touted to me as a bright young man joining his first two-way. And Jacob, may be a little bit unfair to have you call first, because you've never been on the platform before, as I understand it. But just tell us where you are. You're a Princeton student, as I understand it. Where are you, and what's on your mind for Robby and Maureen?
Jake or Jacob. I'm a Princeton student who's on a 2-year break working in marketing for my professor. But I've been a conservative my whole life, and I grew up in Seattle. That's where I am in now. And then I was out in the sort of in the trenches in the Ivy Leagues, which are very, very left wing. And there's always a known principle that you have to sort of lie to your teachers, lie to your professors, and that your friends, it's harder to make friends. You got a tighter circle and all of that. And the way I saw this story, I kind of felt 3 levels of it. The first of his family and his friends, and sort of just the sorrow for his daughter, who's never going to see her father again, and all of that. And then I saw the sort of thoughts on the sort of stochastic terrorism and why this happened, and how he got shot, and why that would have happened. But then the third story, which was I didn't expect at all, was people who I knew told me that he deserved to die. And then when I asked them why, young Gen Z people would tell me all his opinions on abortion, his opinions on guns, his opinions who I hold and have held my entire life. And I even had one person who refused to answer whether or not I deserve to die. And that was the kind of thing that shocked me, just scrolling through Twitter, scrolling through Reddit, glued to my phone the last couple of days, seeing these people. And I've suddenly realized that, and I don't know what percentage it is, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 25, but an enormous percentage of my neighbors don't just, want assassinations of other people, but are at least iffy on the assassination of me. And
Wow.
Jacob, thank you for sharing that. These aren't people you know. These are people you're interacting with on social media.
There's one person who I knew who refused to answer that question, and then thousands that I've seen on social media.
Yeah.
And it was the kind of thing that I mean, frankly, my question to all of you is, I don't know what to do with that information. That I never realized how many people out there were just violent and hateful to this degree.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you for coming on, sharing that. Katy Balls is here. She's Washington reporter for the Times, the United Kingdom. Katy, welcome in.
Thank you.
I'm gonna let you have a go at it. See, I'm using all the idioms to make you feel welcome. Love for you to respond to Jacob, thoughts on what he had to say. And thank you for being here.
I mean, I think that it's been really interesting, obviously, as someone who's only been in the US for a couple of months. And when you look at some of the hatred that's been coming out from certain parts, and I think particularly some of the sewers of social media, where even I think, just hours after what happened to Charlie Kirk, you had Democrat politicians coming out and saying the right things, but you didn't have to go very far to find people saying, he had this coming. And there's elements of that in the UK too, but it feels more intense here.
I got Katy's title wrong. Washington editor. She's not a mere reporter. She's not writing things. She's just telling other people that their adverbs are in the wrong place. Thank you for that. Robby, thoughts for Jacob or questions for Jacob, either way.
I mean, there is a difference, right, between people being willing to say this stuff in real life and people saying it online. The latter is very common, and I don't want to say that that's not disturbing, because it is. I've seen it too. The things people say to me online, sometimes like, I can't. How could there be this many people in the world that just get worked up about something I've done and want to say something nasty to me that would never do this in real life. But that is a key distinction, because we do have to keep in mind, and I've said this on this platform a couple times now, but I think it's so important to keep in mind, is that political disagreements are not a usual source of violence in this country. We certainly want to keep it that way, and I'm happy to be concerned that that's reversing and monitor that. But most violence is somebody's mad at their boss, or they're mad at their neighbor, or they're mad at their spouse. And that is awful. That is the category of violence we deal with in America. But I hate that guy because I don't like his political views. It does not escalate to violence all that often. And that's really good. But I understand why people are freaked out. I understand why people see everything people say online and say, oh my God, where is this coming from, and how can this be healthy? And in the case of this shooter, is this someone, what we know so far is that this person was very online. All the information we have suggests this is someone who was deeply expert in internet subculture, chat forum, 4chan, Reddit knowledge, which is an unhealthy place to be for some number of particularly young men in this country.
Jacob, I'm going to take a stab at your question, but I want to ask Maureen 2 questions. Should people do either of the following 2 things when someone online threatens to kill them or say they should be dead? Engage with them or call the authorities? Should people do either of those 2 things?
Call the authorities, go to FBI.gov, submit a tip or a lead, and screenshot the information, especially with whatever header information is available, or go to ic3.gov and do the same.
Yeah. Jacob, I'll give you 3 pieces of advice when you confront that. One is I just get off the platform. I just don't subject yourself to it. Number 2 is I wouldn't engage with people. I think just by definition, anyone who does something like that is there's no winning. There's no scenario where it's good. And then just, you do have an opportunity now. What year are you going to be at Princeton? When you going back?
My 2nd semester sophomore year when I
Yeah.
go back in January.
So I can't quantify it, but I know that one change that came with President Trump's election is you got a lot more freedom on campus now than you did 5 years ago, than people did 5 years ago. And I think people should take advantage of that and show a little courage, hopefully in solidarity with others, and try to create an environment where you're comfortable by being a leader and reaching out to other people who will join you in solidarity. And this is I think, despite what happened this week, I think it's trending in the right direction. You've seen at these universities under pressure from the Trump administration changes and very little pushback from the left, at least publicly, right? You don't see mass protests at Harvard in saying to the university administration, don't make a deal. Really surprises me, but I can only take it as a sign that there is room now for change. And again, if you can be a leader in that, if you're comfortable doing that, I think there's an opportunity for conservatives on campuses to be treated like other students with the right to free expression and association, and to live your life comfortably. Grateful to you for being here. I hope
Jacob,
you'll stay part of it. Go ahead.
We don't want you to need security, Jacob. So
yeah,
take good care.
Yeah. Now here's something courtesy of Katy Ball's countrymen and women in London tonight, in central London, honoring Charlie. I'm not sure how this event got organized, but here's a video of spontaneous singing of Amazing Grace in honor of Charlie Kirk in central London this evening.
Wow.
Yeah, Jacob, thank you. And I'll just appreciate it. Please come back. Again, when I talked to Charlie on Tuesday, he was just back from Seoul and Tokyo, first time to Asia. He was so in demand, of course, around the United States, but he was so in demand around the world. If he'd been cloned, he could have been on tour around the world because young people and conservatives all over the world knew him and wanted to hear from him and were inspired by him. And he had recently gone to Oxford and done a debate there. I didn't talk to him on the show about this, but I did off camera, and he loved the experience. And again, because he was so humble, He just looked at this as another part of his job, not anything extraordinary, even though, of course, it was for a 31-year-old, not a publicly elected official to be so in demand around the country and the world. All right, more questions. We got to get back on track here. We'll never break the record. I don't know what the record is, but I'll know it when I see it. Nelda, welcome in. Thank you for being Tard Two-Way. Adorable dog. Unmute. Tell folks where you are, what's on your mind for Katy, Maureen, and Robby.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm really sad. I've been sad since Wednesday. First, I want to thank you because right after the election, when you had Charlie on your platform, I was able to talk to him through the Zoom, and that will be a highlight of my life because I admired him a lot. And own words, they have crossed the Rubicon. That's what he said. And they've killed the voice of a generation for us. Someone who spoke the truth that many of us believe. And I just can't reconcile my sadness and my anger. And I've been praying a lot, not to speak out of anger, because I'm just very upset. And I've been following your shows because I listen to Sean and I listen to everyone that's been coming, and it's just hard to come to terms. And but I want to thank you for having given me the opportunity to talk to him on your platform.
Great. Do I remember correctly? You live in California?
I do.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you what my response, but I'm going to pause and let Robby go, and then Katy, and then if Maureen would like to speak, and then I got something to say, but I'm not ready to say it now. Robby.
Just very briefly, I feel that too, and I've talked to so many people who know Charlie well or had just met him for a few minutes who all have the same thing to say. The response from people is so genuine. It really speaks to his character and how friendly he was it could be in a fleeting moment or in a long conversation. And if you're angry, I would say to that, don't give up hope. His work will continue. He built an amazing organization that has connected young people on the right to speakers and to careers and to a movement. And that organization does not die with him. On the contrary, it will go on to be as successful as ever. Because of the work he did building a tremendous organization and connecting young people. There are other people like him waiting in the wings to take up the work that he's doing. So it is, of course, appropriate to be sad. I'm sad. I've talked to thousands of people who are sad as well. I get it, but it should not, our sadness and even our anger should not inspire us to lose hope or be defeatist or be depressed. He would not want that. And because of the work he did, that will not be the case for the conservative movement.
Katy.
Yeah, I feel similar. I mean, I met Charlie Kirk a month or so ago. I followed him around one of his youth summits and sat down with him a few times and saw firsthand just how influential he was. And you had all these big speakers at this event, so members of the cabinet. It was in Tampa, Florida. But every teen who I spoke to, I'd say, what are you here for? Why did you come here? And it was always Charlie Kirk. And they'd seen a video, Prove Me Wrong, and that had taken them to that conference. And yes, so it was exciting maybe to see Donald Trump Jr., but Charlie Kirk was the person who really inspired them. And therefore, there was just this profound sense of loss, I think, and a question as to, Turning Point will continue, but he was a one of a kind in many ways. And I think there's a certain irony and tragedy just in the sense that when you think about, figures on both sides, he was one of those people who went out and actually spoke to the other side. Lots of people don't do that. And yet this is what happened to him when he did.
Maureen.
I'm so sorry you feel that way, but I absolutely understand it. I too am sad. I too am angry. I'm very angry. Anger is one of the phases that we're all going to go through when we consider this situation. Some people enter into it early, like you did, or like I did, and others, can't make it for a while. But you can work through it, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But I think Robby was right. His work, the work that he did, is work that we need to do because activity will help you move through anger. Whether it's working out or doing the work that Charlie did, or reaching out to someone across the aisle and speaking to them and having civil discourse with them and try to get them to understand exactly how you feel and why might be important. But while you're moving through this right now, maybe it's better to just insulate yourself with some close friends. But I think we're all really hurting, and I don't think the magnitude of what Charlie Kirk represented has been realized by this country yet. Certainly not the left, not yet.
Beautiful from all three of you. I'm going to try to say what I wanted to say, and if I can't make it, I'm just going to call on Jason, and you'll forgive me. I'll tell you later. Not worth trying.
No, come on, Mark. Come on, try.
All right, I'll try one more time. Whenever I go on other people's shows, they'll say Mark Halperin, I'm editor-in-chief at Two Way. And that's pretty much all usually anybody would say. Whenever I went on Charlie's show, and I went on quite a bit and honored to be asked, he would always start by talking about Two Way. And why I liked it so much. And after he came on, he commented on, well, he liked the platform for the right reasons. Let me just say that. And his understanding of what we do here was as profound as anyone I know who doesn't work here. He got it. He got it not just as a business, although he did think we would succeed as a business, but he got what this kind of conversation can do. And I wish we'd had him on more, but the one time he was on and you got to ask him a question was really one of the best nights in the history of this platform because of who he was and his capacity to animate what we're trying to do here. And so grateful to you for having been part of that and for coming back tonight. And we'll all be here to help you get through this, and we'll all get through it together. But you shouldn't feel, as Maureen suggested, you shouldn't feel like you're overreacting or that you're alone in how you're reacting to this. This is a profound experience for all of us. And I wonder if this in the 1960s, the late 60s, the Kennedy assassinations and King, had there been social media, I think it would have had a more profound effect on the country. We are inundated with this now 24/7. There's no escaping it. There's no escaping it. And because of my job, I can't escape it in my email. I have to look at my email. I have to look at my phone and my texts. So even if I stay off social media, we're inundated with this, and it makes it very hard. It makes it very hard. And unfortunately, so much of the stuff we're inundated with is not really good for helping us process it. And some of it's, I'd say, pretty harmful. So we're grateful to you for being part of Two Way, and please stay with us. Okay. Jason, thanks for being part of Two Way. Come on in. Let us know what's on your mind.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Mark. I feel like you were born for moments like this in a time like this. And I thank you for having voices on that I differ with, like Nina and Dan, amazing hearts. And I also thank you for giving my area of the political spectrum a voice too with Robby. I appreciate that. It's hard to find that. I feel like I feel like the adults and the college age kids are handling this a little differently. I feel like the adults growing up, you would hear like people who maybe didn't know you leaned a little bit conservative talking about, oh, I'd never hire a conservative. If I knew, I would fire him. And they'd be talking about this right in front of you. And so I think that, yes, we do have violence on both sides, but I think what really infuriates the conservative side is the institutional oppression with college and employers and education system. But I would just beg you, don't put that baggage on the backs of your children. That struggle, don't let that become theirs, because Charlie worked so hard to break through that. And I saw a vigil from the Florida State students, and the reporter said they haven't had their phones out. And I feel like the adults have almost retreated to their phones in anger. And you have these college kids that are going out there and they have vigils. And I just want us not to betray Charlie Kirk's mission by actions of anger, but instead take a stand in love and compassion, and continue supporting, places like Two Way, because this is huge.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for that. Katy, thoughts or question for Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to how do you market and what would Charlie Kirk want everyone to do, certainly to keep having these conversations and going out there. And even just then seeing the vigil in London, outside the Houses of Parliament, where I spent 10 years working, there's lots of protests there. It's nice to see something, are coming together. But But I suppose, how do you think, other than things like two-way, Charlie Kirk would want us to kind of keep having those dialogues when we are talking about some of the challenges that you also get, in terms of people want more security now and so forth?
He didn't insulate or silo himself. That's the thing. He went to where people disagreed with him. And so he actually became extremely bright and extremely knowledgeable about other people's beliefs and their arguments just by going and interacting. And I think right now everybody's wanting to retreat to Truth Social or Blue Sky. And it's like, no, we have got to interact. We have to value people's ideas, ask more questions than you do give comments. Like when I'm talking to people I disagree with, I crave that, and I just wish that other people would too, because then you would understand everybody.
Really well said. I need to tell you two things real quick, and then we'll go back to Robby and Maureen. If you thought you'd had enough crying for your week, at 8:15 tonight, you'll have another opportunity. Erica Kirk is going to make her first public statement. It's going to stream live on the Turning Point USA platforms on YouTube, X, and Rumble at 8:15. It says public statement to the press following the suspect's arrest. And of course, most of you have never heard her speak, so it will be a bit of a revelation. And I can guarantee you this, having heard her speak, you'll be extraordinarily impressed by her. And I can't think of too many people who've lost their spouse, 48 hours or whatever it is before to go out and do something like this. And you'll see an extraordinary person. All right. Jason, thank you. Let me just sneak in our other sponsor credit here, and then we'll go back to your questions in literally less than a minute. And our sponsors, the Bonson Group. So grateful to David Bonson for believing in this platform, believing in the show. As you know, David writes a daily newsletter that I recommend to you. It's called Dividend Cafe, and it's extraordinarily good. It's free, tells you all about what's going on in the macroeconomy. You can subscribe to it for free and read it as I do every day by going to twoway.tv/TBG, the Bonson Group. They provide comprehensive private wealth management services, investment, tax, estate planning. They do everything in-house. David is a genius. The newsletter is genius and also very funny. And I couldn't recommend it to you more. If you want to keep tabs on what's going on, it's not super long. It's written in real time, so it's got all the latest information. David is our sponsor and our friend and a regular guest here. And keep an eye out, because soon we'll be announcing some hour-long shows where David and I will talk a bit about the economy and then take your questions. And there's no better person to ask anything you want about investment or macro trends. So thank you to David for being our sponsor. Okay, let's go back to folks. And again, as you come in, you'll tell us where you are and what's on your mind for Maureen and Katy and Robby. And go to Mitchell. Mitchell, welcome in. Thank you for being part of Two Way.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor. I wanted to say that I think so I'm a millennial, and so I don't have the experience that some of the viewers and things from the 60s had, prior experience with assassinations and things like that. I think probably the closest analog for my lifetime for this kind of a sudden, surprising sort of breaking of what you kind of expected to be a safe thing is really Columbine.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I wanted to bring up was that we still feel sort of the after effects today of that Pandora's box being opened up from then. And a big part of that was not just, basically that there was hero worship for the people who committed that atrocity, right? And so we, like moving forward, right, we have the First and Second Amendment in this country. This was a readily accessible weapon that we're never going to ban in this country, and you couldn't if you tried. And we can't ban ideas, and we shouldn't. So what can we do moving forward to try and keep this person from being a hero that people try to copycat?
Yeah, it's a great question, particularly in the age in which we live. Thank you for that, Mitchell. Robbie.
Yeah, that is the question on some level, and one I've been reflecting on a lot lately because I think there is a plausible, I argue against a lot of the social contagion arguments about why we're getting more of this kind of violence or that kind of violence. Is it video games? Is it health? Is it, whatever it is? There's so many ways to cherry pick things. But I think it is the most plausible of all is the kind of attention that we, frankly, in the media give to the motivations, and we publish their drawings, we say everything about them. Again, we don't know this case yet; it's far too early. But the recent shooter at the church from just the other week clearly is an individual who wanted attention, who fantasized about having the mass shooter experience of having their entire worldview and identity become national news. It is so clear to me that we are feeding into that in some way. Now, the frustrating thing is I have no practical or good solution for that because people have the viewers, the public have an understandable interest in wanting to understand how these things happen, and we can't just fail to cover it because we think it's not good for you or good for society if we don't. If there's an interest in this thing, it's a responsibility on some level to talk about it. We have the First Amendment. We can't stop media companies from reporting on it, even if we wanted to, and even if we thought it was in our best interests. So there is no satisfying answer, but it is if we were to adapt or adopt as newsrooms policies of not sharing the person's name, like that, on one hand, that sounds like a great idea. On the other hand, how would you even, if we had all wanted to conceal the name of this individual in the last, since this morning when we found out who he was, how could that even be done? It seems counter to some of our other free speech principles and maybe technically impossible.
Maureen.
It could be done. And I happen to be really close friends with two of the FBI's most prolific profilers, and they're they're both just brilliant in what they do. Neither one of them will ever mention the name of the offender. We'll call, like, for example, the Moscow, Idaho killer. Just call him the name of whatever crime he committed. Remember the names of the victims, honor the victims. That's what they don't want. We cannot, you said it so perfectly, Robbie, when you talked about this hero worship. We worship these people. Look at the Moscow killer. When one of the victim's sisters went in the courtroom and dressed him down, he was mortified. He couldn't take it. It was like a javelin in his chest, and it was one of the most wonderful things I had ever witnessed. And I spoke to my friend, the profiler, Jim Clementi, and he said, it was fantastic. She was destroying this guy in the courtroom. It was wonderful. So we have to take the wind out of their sails, and we gotta flatten their tires. And that's it, because right now that is not happening in any of these instances. So I try not to mention their name. And Jim Clementi goes as far as saying, because everyone wants him on their shows, all mainstream media, and he says, are you going to mention the offender's name? Yes, then I will not be on your show. And he has stood by that for as long as I've known him.
Katy, in the UK, do you guys identify folks, or do you have different rules? Because you're not as much of a stickler for the First Amendment as we are.
No, we're not. We've got a few issues on that. But when we have, yes, we do identify the names of the killers and so forth. There can be a delay in doing that, depending on where you are in the court process, contempt of court, what you're allowed to report. But the names are reported. And I think, in any case where you know the name of the killer and not the victim, something's gone wrong. I think in the case of Charlie Kirk, that's clearly not going to happen. You can see what his legacy is. But then you look at the coming trial of Luigi Mangoni in New York. We look at what's happening there, and I think there is a question of how do you not glamorize these people? But also, I think the risk is if you start withholding information, and we've seen this in the UK on other issues. We had the Southport attacks where people felt they were being stopped from giving information. And it suddenly means that their information is going to be put out by someone somewhere. Often, if it's not put out by the journalist, it's put out by someone who doesn't have the right information. And it can, you can actually breed more into kind of conspiracies and sense like that if it looks like you're holding it back. So I think it's a tricky balance.
Katie, just so I'm clear,
go
I'm
ahead,
not
Maureen.
saying I'm just so I'm clear, I'm not saying we don't identify the person, even
Yeah.
though I'm in retrospect, it sounded that way, because
Oh,
we
sorry, I
want to
didn't see that.
identify them, because we want we want to get further information from them. So if you went to high school with them, you live on his block, etc. But in perpetuity, we don't keep mentioning this person's name. That's
Yeah.
all.
Katie, you did withhold the identity of Jack the Ripper, though.
Yeah, that was a bit before my time, though.
Yeah. Okay. Not
Just a
responsible.
bit.
Mitchell, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Carol, welcome in. Carol's a therapist, so much needed. Carol, is this on the clock or off the clock?
It's off the clock.
Okay, go ahead. And you're
I was
free to
feeling,
speak.
yeah, I'm obviously feeling, I was very upset by this because like this world is villainizing men, and like this was a really, really good man. And so like we hurt for a lot of reasons, and I understand people's pain. I felt for you, Mark, this morning when that one lady was talking to you about not feeling seen and heard. And I just want to speak to that for a minute because this is what I do for a living. Like, and I think that one man spoke to it, but I think it was the financial guy. But when people don't feel seen, their bodies literally will fight to be seen and heard and understood. And the problem is the grief that these people, like, we just need some space to slow down and have people understand. And that's the problem in our politics, is that the other side so vehemently gets reactive and going, there's no reason why you could ever, like you can't, he's hurt us and so he's scary and we can't see you in that place. And that's the problem in our political life, is we all have to slow down. All I do with couples is I make space one at a time for people to be heard. And so it's really hard on this platform, Mark, so I get it, to slow down and give some space for the people that are grieving to be heard first. And so I don't know how to do that for you, Mark, but that's what I try to do. And it's very, very hard at the same time going, hey, like you guys that are angry and feel like he's hurt everyone. Yeah, we get that. But this is very hard because everyone who's feeling it, it's so raw.
Yeah.
It's so raw that a good man would die and would die in this place. So I think whatever people have to do, if they can't get it on this platform or in the world, they need to be able to turn to somebody in their home or to God or to somebody and know that someone understands their pain. And we've just got to slow this down. Otherwise, we just get reactive and then somebody's going to go do something horrible.
Yeah.
And can I ask Carol a question?
Yes, please, Maureen, go ahead.
Carol,
Always.
I just think that I agree with everything you said, and I can feel the pain in your voice, and you can probably hear the pain in mine. But I think the situation was compounded by the fact that this took place in front of all these students in a place that they thought was safe. And it was so horrific and so graphic that even I've worked plane crashes. I've seen many, many, many dead bodies. I saw that clip once and I wish I never would have seen it. And I think you're right. You hit on something, because he's such a good man. To see a man like that, it was beyond brutal. And I don't know that any of those people, this is going to cause, in my opinion, which is not a professional one, you tell me, this is going to cause generational trauma.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting about that, because I'm just going to say this, Maureen, because I'm familiar with Utah culture. The one nice thing about it happening in front of those people is a lot of those people have really close-knit families. Now, I'm not saying all of them, and I'm not saying that they can deal with this, but there were probably a ton of people in that audience that grabbed their family and were with their families even, and hugged each other and had somebody, because I do attachment work. And you can deal with any trauma as long as you're not alone in it.
Yeah,
like
Carol,
it's the alone in the pain that makes so much of a difference.
Yeah, Robby, question or comment, Carol, if you'd like.
Well, I have a follow-up question as well. Going off of what Maureen said, do you have any, quick advice for people who watched that video? I'm one of them, and dealing with the kind of, I see it in my nightmares, horror of having watched
Yeah.
something very graphically violent, not for the first
Yeah.
time in my life, but it's just being
Yeah.
so awful.
Great question.
Yes. I can give you a story because I'm an attachment-based therapist, and I'm telling you, the biggest problem in our world right now is people have very poor attachments. They don't know how to reach out and tell what's going on, and they don't know how to get comfort and reassurance. It's very bond, and we're meant to open up when we feel distressed. So the most important thing that you could do is allow your body to feel it with someone that you care about, and tell them and feel all of it in your body. Like literally, we feel emotion in our body. Like I can feel it in my stomach. It's tight right now. And I didn't see that film. I'm very glad I didn't. But when you open up and you slow down and you walk around that and you see another human being that looks at you with care and concern, and their heart breaks with you, you don't have to fix it. They don't have to do anything except hold a space for you to feel that experience and tell me what happened. Tell me everything that happened. I'm so sad. I can't believe that happened. What was that like inside your body? And somebody's there, and then you just feel with them. In fact, if you're listening right now, you can feel it in my voice, what that would be like to have someone just hold you in that horrible space and let you tell the whole darn story and feel it in your body. Just tell them, and then they care. I mean, I'm grieving for every one of you on this call that is feeling so deeply about this. When we get comfort and reassurance, when we're in the emotion can settle in our body and it feels calming. And that's how the trauma eventually settles. And then you don't have to feel it anymore. Like it'll settle in a sad place, painful place. Body can go, okay, I've been seen in that place, and you can breathe and you can start to move through it. That's what attachment theory is all about. Works every time. Does that
Katy.
make
Thank you.
sense?
It does.
Thank you.
Beautiful and helpful. And I know you helped more than one person and hopefully many more. So thank you for that. Katy,
Okay.
question or comment for Carol?
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, just thinking about that video, I mean, I didn't watch the video either. I had friends who had and said, just don't do it to yourself, and regretted almost doing it. But often it feels that you don't really necessarily have a choice, because it's just so flooded on social media, these things. You know, it's not like you're choosing whether or not to watch it half the time. You can actively say, I'm going to try and stay away. So when this goes, I flick. But for example, we also had all the pictures of the Ukrainian woman who was, you know, attacked, stabbed in the neck on a train. And I saw plenty of that is haunting me right now, when you see those things. So I think it's tough when you, with the way social media works now, and this, to your point about the 60s earlier, you know, we now live in an age where you think about some of the things that happened in the past and how they would be in the social media era. It's almost so we don't have a choice to see how graphic this stuff is, which means we probably do need more coping mechanisms.
Yeah, a couple things, three things really. First of all, Carol, I never read the chat, but I glanced at it. Everybody's asking to come back, so we'd love for you to be back next week as time allows on either show. Two is I wonder about Israel. You know, I can't think of any analogs for the two videos that Katy just mentioned in modern American history where the stories were such. I guess I shouldn't say that. George Floyd would be an example, or Penny, but these two. For, you know, I don't know, a lot of residents, but I wonder what happens in Israel, because Israel has all these hostage videos and beheadings, etc. And I'm sure a lot of people in Israel watch them. And I just wonder sort of if there's been any studies of that. And then lastly, Carol, you mentioned the woman who was on the morning meeting. I apologize for her on the show, and I've had plenty of time to think about it during the day. And of course, many people have reached out to me to tell me what a horrible person I am about it. I apologize. I apologize again, and I'll just say I know all of you understand. I'm tired and a little bit emotional this week, and back to this, the point that caused me to behave improperly is I still think that people need to be less judgmental in general about how everyone's coping with this, and less judgmental about what's said on live programs.
Yeah.
These
yeah,
aren't
yeah.
scripted programs. Carol, thank you. Very grateful to you.
Yes.
I hate to say we're not going to break the record, in part because between Robby, Katy, and Maureen, we have three people who I want to hear from on everything. So we won't break the record, but we had a nice time together, and we still have a little bit more time left. So welcome in, Anthony. Thank you for joining. Tell folks where you are, what's on your mind for Maureen, Katy, and Robby.
Hi, Mark. Huge fan of you and the show for quite a while. I'm up in Fairfax County, Virginia. Charlie's death hit me pretty hard for a couple of reasons. One of them, we're right around the same age. He was 31, I'm 32. We're both conservatives. Another reason is I'm a full-time graduate student right now at George Mason University. So I'm on a college campus and as a conservative. So I really admired him because in a lot of ways he reminded me of one of my political heroes, William F. Buckley Jr., because he was often willing, he was always willing to engage with the other side and was a very good debater and things like that. Like most of you, I try to wonder, like, what is a good constructive way that we can sort of get ourselves out of these deeply polarized times. And I think a lot of it just comes down to, it's like, there's not really a sense of community anymore, I think, in this country. Like, if you look at like 30, 20 years ago, even, like, used to have a lot more like civic organizations and things like that. People were involved in things like Kiwanis clubs and, church attendance was a lot higher. And you don't really see things like that. And I think that those types of community organizations today, we need a lot more of them because they would provide a really good way of, I think, bringing down the volume with a lot of this stuff. And it would sort of bind people together, because nowadays everybody's just living on their devices all the time. You even see really young little kids walking around with devices and stuff with their phones and things like that. And there's just not, I just don't know really how we're going to be able to sort of, if that is in fact really what causes a lot of this polarization, how we're going to sort of wean people off these devices and build a sense of community, because people aren't looking at each other, face to face anymore. When they have political disagreements, it's all, on a device. It's on Twitter or Blue Sky or something like that. And, when you don't have that face to face interaction, people are just sort of like, well, I can talk, put a lot of crazy things out about people that I disagree with. And I think people have gotten to the point, because it's not this sense of community, it's created this political extremism, because people, when they don't have a sense of community, they're trying to replace it with something. And so what they're replacing it with is like their politics, and politics has almost become like their personal type of religion almost in many ways. And when you get to that point where that's all you think about is politics nonstop, 24/7, you start seeing the other side as an otherism, and then you have people that are extreme enough that are going to want to do crazy things like what they did to Charlie.
Yeah. Anthony brilliantly said, you speak for tens of millions and did it very articulately, and I'm grateful to you. And I'll only say, I'd hope you grant one exception to the use of technology to actually bring people together, which is this platform where we're trying to turn things a little bit on its head. Thank you, Anthony, for that great closing comment for the week. Love to get 12 seconds from each of you to thank you all, but anything you want to say in closing about how you plan to spend the weekend, or whether you think you'll be dealing with this or not? Katy.
Yeah. Well, I'm spending the weekend probably writing about Charlie Kirk, still, because in the UK, as you saw from that vigil, even though I work for a UK paper, there's huge interest in this story.
Yeah.
And I think what's been interesting is a certain age group, when I profiled him a few months ago, they all knew who Charlie was. The 40 plus in the UK know, now they do, and they're taking him very seriously.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Maureen.
I have my nephew and his wife and the two children, and so my husband and I and a couple of really good family friends, and we're going to be hanging out together this weekend. And I turned down a bunch of opportunities to be on different media platforms just because I need a day off. It's been hard.
Yeah. Robby.
I'm about to go have dinner with some friends. We're going to crack open a bottle of wine and process what we've lived through this week. Tomorrow, I'm going to an engagement party, and I'm going to a friend's party to celebrate that she wrote a book. I'm going to spend the whole weekend interacting with the people I love and care about. And like you said, Anthony, it's so important to get those in person, but this platform substitutes for that in some way. That's good. There's good ways to use technology and what we call social media, and there's bad ways. And I think that's because we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're not going backward, but doubling down on the good parts and finding healthier ways to avoid the bad parts of these technologies is where I think it's at.
Yeah, thank you. Robby and Maureen and Katy, so grateful to the three of you. You're all extraordinary guests here and contributors to this platform. And I couldn't think of three other people I'd more want to end the week with. And so grateful to the community, Dan and Sean and Robby's colleague on the group chat or other programs. We're very proud of the work that was done this week here. We call it Conversations Like No Other. We think we achieved that and never done it in a way that felt more resonant and important. And extremely important for me. I don't know what my week would have been like without the ability to hear from everybody and to try to process this together. So I'm very grateful to you. And barring some big breaking news that'll bring us back together over the weekend, we will see you Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Sean, Dan, and I for the morning meeting. And again, thank you for being part of this community. Have a good evening and a good weekend. Thank you again, Maureen, Katy, and Robby. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.